Good morning friends and welcome back to Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions. I am Girish Mirchandani and this week is going to be all about figures. And by figures, we mean numbers. With the road transport industry as well as the commercial vehicle industry gradually bouncing back to pre-COVID numbers, we take a look at their performance. Not surprisingly, all OEMs have reported healthy growth not just in March 2022 but the whole of financial year 22. Also in our interaction segment, we will be talking to a youngster, an IIT graduate who has built a startup that aims to ease the lives of transporters as well as truckers. We will be talking to Karan Shaha, one of the founders of VAHAK. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. E-way bill generation in March 2022 crosses the highest ever tally, touches 2.21 lakh e-way bills a day. Tata Motors bags order of 1,300 commercial vehicles from VRL Logistics Limited. Mr. Satish Sharma and Mr. Gaganjot Singh elected as Atma Chairman and Vice Chairman respectively. Tata Motors records annual commercial vehicle sales of 3,56,972 units. VE Commercial Vehicles sells 8,803 units in March 2022. Ashok Leyland closes financial year 22 with a growth of 41% over last year. Coming up after this very short break, news in details and our interaction with Karan Shaha. You are watching Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions.
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका ब्लेजो एक्स सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, वरना कर दीजिए ट्रक वापस।
सॉरी अजय, महिंद्रा फ्यूरियो है। एक्शन।
महिंद्रा गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका फ्यूरियो सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, नहीं तो
एक्चुअली जयो, महिंद्रा जयो है, थोड़ा चेंज है। एंड एक्शन।
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका जियो सबसे चल क्या रहा है यहाँ पे?
मैम, ये चारों ट्रक ज्यादा माइलेज देते हैं, चारों।
तो ऐसा बोलो ना, ब्लेजो एक्स, फ्यूरियो, फ्यूरियो 7 और जयो। महिंद्रा के ये सभी ट्रक्स देते हैं सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज की गारंटी, नहीं तो कर दीजिए इन्हें वापस। महिंद्रा, देश की सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देने वाली ट्रक रेंज।
Welcome back to Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions. Financial year 2022 seems to have ended on a good note. Besides reporting good numbers, it also gives a bright ray of hope for the future. It may seem that we are finally reaching the end of the tunnel and bright sunlight awaits us. E-way bill generation and toll collections may be considered a barometer to measure the health of the road transport industry, strictly in terms of volumes. And these volumes seem to be climbing month after month. In March 2022, e-way bill generation touched its highest ever number, 25.21 lakh e-way bills a day. This truly is a sign of recovery, not just for the economy of the country on the whole, but also for the road transport industry, since 99% of the e-way bills are generated under the road category. लेकिन e-way bills बढ़ने के बावजूद एक चीज़ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री, ट्रांसपोर्टर्स और ट्रकर्स को परेशान कर रही होगी, वो है राइजिंग कॉस्ट ऑफ ऑपरेशन। डीजल प्राइसेस रोज बढ़ते जा रहे हैं एंड द गवर्नमेंट डजंट सीम टू केयर अबाउट द इम्पैक्ट इट कैन हैव ऑन द रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री। इलेक्शंस के दौरान गवर्नमेंट ने डीजल प्राइस हाइक पर रोक लगा दी थी और अब जब इलेक्शन पूरे हुए हैं वो एक साथ डीजल प्राइसेस बढ़ाने के बदले रोज 80 पैसे 1 रुपए डीजल प्राइसेस बढ़ा रही है। हाउ इज दिस गोइंग टू इम्पैक्ट द रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री? हमने पिछले हफ्ते भी कहा था, एक ट्रांसपोर्टर जो नॉर्थ इंडिया से साउथ इंडिया अपनी ट्रक ले जाता है वो जर्नी करीब 5 से 6 दिन में पूरी करता है। इन 6 दिनों के दौरान डीजल प्राइसेस 6 रुपए तक बढ़ सकते हैं। हाउ विल ही फिक्स हिज ऑपरेटिंग कॉस्ट and how will he offer the freight to the customer? Though there should have been a simple policy by the road transport industry to pass on these hikes to the customers, but the lack of policy of any kind by the industry leaves the transporters and truckers on its own. Going forward, it is going to be not just the survival of the fittest, but also of the smartest. However, the one thing that can keep the road transport industry motivated is that most of the goods will still be transported by road and those volumes are huge. At the same time, improvement in infrastructure would mean lower operating costs as well as lesser transit time, which would enable the transporters and truckers to do more trips. But we would once again urge the government to work on a fuel policy that allows revision of diesel prices at least once in 6 months, or if not, at least once a quarter. Transport associations may be making these presentations to the government, but they have to be more hard in what they present to the government. And if the road transport industry is looking for more inspiration and motivation, here it is. VRL Logistics, one of the oldest logistics players in the country, has placed an order for 1,300 commercial vehicles with Tata Motors. Yes, Tata Motors bagged an order of 1,300 commercial vehicles from VRL Logistics Limited, a leader in surface logistics in India, to expand VRL Logistics commercial vehicle fleet portfolio in the country. The order comprises of vehicles from Tata Motors medium and heavy commercial vehicle and intermediate and light commercial vehicle range suited for logistics operations of the company. The vehicles were selected on the basis of superior drivability, higher fuel efficiency and low total cost of ownership, which will enable VRL Logistics to increase its fleet efficiency. Commenting on the occasion, Mr. Rajesh Kaul, Vice President Sales and Marketing, Commercial Vehicle Business Unit Tata Motors, said, "We are delighted to secure the prestigious order of 1,300 vehicles from VRL Logistics Limited. I am confident that our vehicles will bring great value to their operations. We at Tata Motors endeavor to engineer our vehicles to offer the lowest total cost of operation, and our widest service network will ensure best in the industry service support in all corners of the country. We look forward to a fruitful partnership with VRL Logistics Limited and will offer the best support for their seamless operations." Meanwhile, in the tyre industry, Mr. Satish Sharma, President Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa and whole-time Director of Apollo Tyres, has been elected as the new Chairman of Automotive Tyre Manufacturers Association, also known as ATMA. At the same time, Mr. Gagan Jot Singh, President Michelin Africa, India and Middle East region, takes over as Vice President of ATMA, which is the national industry body for the automotive tyre sector in India. As President of Apollo Tyres, Mr. Satish Sharma guides strategy and oversees the implementation of key functions like manufacturing, sales and marketing, customer relations and profitability in Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa. A member of the company's management and supervisory board, he is credited with Apollo's steady sales growth in the last 5 years. Across his tenure with Michelin, Mr. Gagan Jot Singh has held various leadership roles in finance, sales and other commercial functions across Asia, Africa and Europe. He is a member of the Michelin Strategy Operating Group, also known as the GOS. In the M&HCV segment, Tata Motors reported sales of 14,499 vehicles in March 2022, a growth of 33% over March 21. In the INLCV segment, the company recorded a growth of 11%, selling 7,555 vehicles. Talking about financial year 22, Tata Motors sold 88,041 vehicles during FY22, a rise or a growth of 51% over last year, where the company sold 58,127 vehicles. In the INLCV segment, the company recorded a growth of 42% in FY22, selling 53,854 vehicles. Total commercial vehicle sales of the company grew 36% in FY22, with the company selling 3,56,972 vehicles as compared to 2,62,320 vehicles in FY21. Commenting on the company's performance, Mr. Girish Wagh, Executive Director Tata Motors Limited, said, "Tata Motors commercial vehicle domestic sale in Q4 FY22 at 1,10,027 units was 21% higher than the previous quarter and 12% higher than the same quarter last year. The M&HCV segment grew by over 51% versus the previous quarter, while being 20% ahead of the same quarter last year, on the back of increased activity in road construction, mining and improved infrastructure spending by the central and state governments. ILCVs grew by 18% versus Q3 and 8% versus Q4 last year, supported by growth in e-commerce and agriculture. The SCV PU segment largely remained flat on a quarterly basis, while being 5% ahead of the same quarter. Early signs of recovery were seen in the otherwise worst impacted CV passenger segment. The international business continued the momentum. Meanwhile, Eicher branded trucks and buses have recorded sales of 8,581 units in March 2022 as compared to 6,870 units in March 21. In the financial year, VECV sold 55,824 vehicles, which is 38.9% higher than last year's tally of 40,188 vehicles. Ashok Leyland also recorded excellent figures and ended FY22 with a growth of 41%. During March 2022, in the M&HCV segment, Ashok Leyland sold 12,734 vehicles as compared to 9,901 vehicles in March 21, a growth of 29%. However, if you see only the M&HCV truck segment, the company has recorded a growth of 39%. Unfortunately, the bus segment is still waiting for its turn to get on the path of recovery. In FY22, Ashok Leyland sold 65,090 vehicles, which is 41% higher than last year's tally of 46,043 vehicles. In the LCV segment, Ashok Leyland ended financial year 22 selling 1,17,312 vehicles, a growth of 27% over last year's sales of 92,714 vehicles. As we can clearly see, the road transport and the commercial vehicle industry are on a growth path. But things are not going to be very easy for the road transport industry with costs rising. Besides diesel prices, the other cost component which is going to affect the transporters is toll tax. It has been reported that in some sectors, toll tax has increased by almost 25% in the last month. But are the transporters even aware of this? We would once again urge transport associations to come up with a policy that safeguards the transporters. It is high time associations started talking to each other and coming up with solutions that help the transporters and especially the small truckers who will also be facing the wrath of scrapping policy. Friends, coming up after this very short break, we will be talking to Mr. Karan Shaha, one of the co-founders of VAHAK, and knowing more about what VAHAK has to offer to the transporters and especially the truckers. You are watching Trans India, real people, real emotions.
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका ब्लेजो एक्स सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, वरना कर दीजिए ट्रक वापस।
सॉरी अजय, महिंद्रा फ्यूरियो है। एक्शन।
महिंद्रा गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका फ्यूरियो सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देता है, नहीं तो
एक्चुअली जयो, महिंद्रा जयो है, थोड़ा चेंज है। एंड एक्शन।
महिंद्रा ये गारंटी देते हैं कि उनका जियो सबसे चल क्या रहा है यहाँ पे?
मैम, ये चारों ट्रक ज्यादा माइलेज देते हैं, चारों।
तो ऐसा बोलो ना, ब्लेजो एक्स, फ्यूरियो, फ्यूरियो 7 और जयो। महिंद्रा के ये सभी ट्रक्स देते हैं सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज की गारंटी, नहीं तो कर दीजिए इन्हें वापस। महिंद्रा, देश की सबसे ज्यादा माइलेज देने वाली ट्रक रेंज।
Welcome back to Trans India, real people, real emotions. In the last few years, the road transport industry has seen many app-based services for the road transport industry that aim to target the pain points, especially that of procuring loads. VAHAK is one such company that joined the bandwagon but plan to do things differently. In our interaction segment today, we will talk to one of the founders of VAHAK, Karan Shaha, who talks about how VAHAK is different and what are the offerings of VAHAK for the SMEs, that is the transporters, and also the smaller truckers. VAHAK, India's largest online transport marketplace, was founded by IIT graduates Karan Shaha and Vikas Chandrawat in February 2019. The two co-founders embarked on a mission to digitally transform the logistics business in India after working on the ground level and also running a transport company to understand the pain points of this segment. This hands-on experience and the deep insight they gained about the core problems faced by the industry led to the inception point for VAHAK. At VAHAK, Karan looks after the overall management and strategic planning. He also leads the team and ensures they are in alignment with the company's vision of revolutionizing the logistics industry. Karan's expertise include business and data analytics, logistics management, and project planning. So here's getting into our interaction with Karan. So Karan, how did VAHAK come into being and what was the thought process behind VAHAK?
We actually did not start with VAHAK. Us coming into the industry was basically the inception of this everything. Both of us actually graduated in 2015. Right after college, actually some of our family members introduced us to this problem of truck booking being a big hassle. This is when we both were working as business analysts and consultants. We obviously understood that the problem was big, so we did a bit of our research and we totally understood the scale of the problem. It was a really big problem that the entire nation was facing. And we being young graduates did not know much about how truck booking is done, what is the process, what is the market like, what are the deep-rooted problems. So back in 2016, just to understand what the market is like, we basically started our own transport company. And at the same time, we started providing GPS solutions to small lorry owners in the market. That experience of us being a transport company ourselves, doing things on the ground, setting up a shop just like a transport company, we basically faced the same challenges that those guys were facing on the ground. So we actually did that for about 2.5, 3 years, and that experience gave us some very deep-rooted insights as to what are the issues, and to solve those issues at scale, we actually launched VAHAK in 2019. VAHAK is basically a community and a marketplace for the transport industry. We help transport SMEs and lorry owners who are mostly offline, do not have any online presence, to come onto the platform, create an online profile wherein they are able to make connections, get ratings, reviews, they are able to verify their documents, and this is how they are sort of able to create a brand value and an identity for themselves, and then they leverage that identity on our live marketplace to get more business.
Before starting VAHAK, you mentioned you did a lot of groundwork. What were your learnings then?
Right. So I would say that there were multiple learnings that we saw. I would like to highlight 3 or 4 important points here. The first thing that we understood was there was the industry has not adopted technology much. This was an industry that is still working just like 50-60-year-old. The business processes are manual, mostly family-run legacy businesses. The entry barrier was high. So this was the basic understanding that we saw, that there was a huge entry barrier and at the same time no use of technology. But then when we come to the actual processes and the way in which the business are done, there are 3 major issues that we ultimately identified, which we are solving through VAHAK. So the first is the issue of communication being a big hassle. So at this point of time, 100% of the transport bookings are actually done through telephone calls. A transport SME spends more than 5 to 6 hours of their daily time on phone just talking to different vendors, getting rates from them, and it basically creates a huge confusion in terms of the rates and in terms of the actual information that is there. It basically wastes a lot of time, and there is no clarity in terms of what the actual supply and the demand is. So the first problem was the problem of inefficient communication. There was no common platform in which the communication was being done. Telephone was the only way. And the next major problem was the problem of a huge trust deficit in the market. So every single transport transaction is a high stake transaction. The material itself costs a lot in many cases. The freight is also not a small amount. And since more than 80-90% of these SMEs and owners do not have any online presence, they find it very difficult to prove their credibility in the market. And that is why what happens is that every single SME only wants to deal with those lorry owners whom they personally know, and same is the case with lorry owners. They only want to deal with those transport SMEs whom they are in touch with in person for a long time, because that is how they are able to develop trust. What this ultimately does is that since you are basically limited to your own personal networks, you are limited as a business. You are not able to get many orders, you are not able to get supply for those orders, and ultimately the lorry utilization in our country becomes very low. So the lorry utilization in our country is just about 55-60%, which means that a lorry is able to run just for 55-60% of the days in a month. The rest of the days they are just stranded or sitting idle waiting for their next order. Since a majority of the lorries are actually financed, every single day a lorry is just sitting. It's a cost that the lorry owner has to bear, and all of these problems ultimately increases the transport cost for the entire nation. So I would say that the problem of communication, the problem of trust deficit being there, and the problem of low tech adoption are the 3 major problems that we saw in the market.
So Karan, how does VAHAK help in solving these issues?
So first of all, VAHAK is an open marketplace. We are a pure tech platform where we are basically empowering every single lorry owner and SME with the power of technology and with the power of network. So since I mentioned some of the problems, I'll try to tell you how VAHAK solves them. So on an average, what really happens is that as soon as the transport SME receives an order, they make 15-20 phone calls in an hour and get rates from different lorry owners. So in an hour, typically they are able to reach not more than 50-20 guys. With VAHAK, what happens is that in a matter of a click, you are able to reach lakhs of lorry owners and transport SMEs in a minute, and you start getting bids. What this does is that you have a very clear understanding of what the actual market freights and the market supply and demand conditions are, right? And at the same time, you are able to increase your own brand and network. All the SMEs and owners who are seeing your posting on the platform are able to verify you through your profile. They basically see your brand. So the problem of communication and trust are being solved through a common platform which is totally tech driven. Since we are a pure tech platform, we have a power of distribution where we are able to reach more than 15,000 locations up till now. So the motive was always to solve problem at scale and to empower this particular market with the power of technology. And I think we are on a path to do that.
Karan, how does a typical transaction take place? Can you take us through the process, and how is VAHAK easing the pain of the SME as well as the trucker?
So I'll basically take you through a transaction between the transport SME and a lorry owner. So transport SME typically is a service provider who is in touch with multiple shippers, and they basically get orders from them. What happens is that as soon as the transport SME receives an order, he makes 15-20 phone calls to different lorry owners, and he also has some lorries of his own in some cases. Let's say he books a lorry from one of his connections. What happens after that is that a multi-step online and offline process starts. The lorry owner is typically a mobile person. They don't really have a lot of money. So the transport SME is the one who basically provides the working capital for the entire transaction. So once the deal is done, once the basic commercials are set, the lorry basically goes to the factory or the warehouse, the loading is done, the basic documentation is done, and then basically the transport SME gives about 70% of the money in advance to the lorry owner. The lorry owner then basically delivers the material, brings back a proof of delivery. On the basis of the proof of delivery, the transport SME has to give him the remaining 30% of the freight. Based on the proof of delivery, the transport SME generates an invoice which he then gives to the shipper and gets his money after a month or 45 days, which is the usual working cycle. The problem here that we're able to clearly see is that the transport SME's business is totally dependent upon the working capital that they have. Unless and until they don't have the working capital, they won't really able to do any business even if they have the load and the lorry in front of you. So that is one of the major problems that we are ultimately trying to solve through VAHAK. Users on VAHAK, by maintaining their own transactional records and maintaining their own history, will basically generate a credit score for themselves, and ultimately VAHAK will be providing them with this bottleneck, which is the financial services.
So Karan, is VAHAK providing finance, or that is still under process?
So it is basically yet to come. I would say that we are building towards financial services. Since financial services is something that needs to be built over certain layers of transactional data, over a layer of trust based on the online activities that the user is doing. So I would say that we are in a stage of building that. In the next 8 to 10 months, we are looking to launch these services.
Karan, how can an SME or a trucker get onto your portal to get these services? What is the process for the same?
Right. So the process is pretty straightforward and simple for both the SMEs and the owners. It's a single application. We're actually present on Android as well as on the web now. I'll tell you basically how he onboards the platform. So basically you have to go to the Play Store, download the application. What happens after that is that you basically have to tell us some basic details about your business, just like the type of services that you provide, the city in which you're based, the type of routes in which you go, and the type of lorries in which you typically operate in. As soon as that process is complete, you have basically created an online profile for yourself. You can now basically enhance that profile. Parallelly, what you can do is you can basically visit the live marketplace. So as soon as the basic onboarding process is done, every single user accesses the live marketplace where they are able to see the live loads and live lorries according to their own requirement. And that is when they are directly able to bid on the live loads and live lorries and basically do transactions.
How much time does it usually take for a transaction to get through?
The typical time actually ranges depending on the liquidity on the platform and multiple routes. But the typical time that we usually see is around 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, a user after posting a load on VAHAK has already received up to 8 to 10 bids, and then they basically have to make a choice of accepting one of the bids and completing a transaction after that.
So Karan, on any given day, how many trucks are available on your platform?
So on any day we have more than 10 to 12,000 trucks active on the platform, and the same is the case with loads. We any day have about 8 to 9,000 loads on the platform which are ready to be booked.
Is this across India, or there are any geographies that you are particularly strong in?
Yeah, we are actually present pan-India, but we have good presence in states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, UP, Rajasthan, West Bengal, Delhi. So these are the states where we are typically seeing a bit more tech adoption. But yeah, the motive is to actually ultimately grow this network throughout the nation, and that is why we are basically making the platform very much inclusive. We are bringing in things like multiple languages. We are bringing in things where our technology can be used in all the types of devices in bad conditions like bad internet connections. So yeah, the motive is to grow it throughout the nation. Looking forward, we are basically looking to strengthen our presence in these states which I mentioned, and then we will look to grow throughout the nation.
So while you're providing loads and also looking to provide finance in the future, what does the service bundle ideally look like?
Right. So there are multiple services that we will be ultimately able to provide this industry based on the data and based on the activities that are happening. So there are two major types of services, I would say. First is the financial services. So things that will basically come into financial services are things like payments, things like insurance, things like working capital loans. We will basically safeguard the entire transaction through escrows. So basically smart contracts, payments and insurance are something that will come into the financial services part of thing. Then there is a big opportunity towards value added services as well. So every single transaction that happens on the platform, a big part of it goes to these value added services. So these are services like services and products like fuel, FASTag, GPS, truck's entire body parts, and FASTags, as I have already mentioned. So yeah, these are the two services, the financial services and the value added services, which will be ultimately launched on the platform. Yeah.
So Karan, while transporters are better organized, truckers have no office or fixed location, which increases the risk element significantly while providing them with funding. How do you plan to safeguard yourself, or what are the checks you have planned to put this in place?
Right. So first of all, since we are just a platform, we are not basically taking part in the operations. We are not managing the entire transaction. That is why I would say that this is something that we are building on. What we are ultimately trying to do is we are trying to create a very safe and secure infrastructure for the entire industry to deal in. At this point of time, it's not necessarily us who is getting blamed if the robbery is happening, but we are looking to build the product in such a way that the users do not have to face these problems in the future. So things like escrows, insurance, smart contracts are something that will go a long way towards securing the trust and the safety in these kind of transactions.
Do you carry out any background checks of the truckers before onboarding them on your platform?
So as I said, it's a very simple process. It's not really compulsory for every single owner to do their KYC at this point of time, but it's a feature that many of our users are actively using, but because that basically reduces the trust gap. So on our platform, as soon as you onboard, you basically do a OTP verification. Post that, you tell us your company information, basic details, and then you are able to basically do your KYC and Aadhaar verification. At the same time, for every single lorry, you are able to do your RC, insurance and fitness verification as well.
Karan, with the government also emphasizing on IT with the e-way-bill, the GST, how simplified has the business become?
Right. So I would say that the business itself has moved towards simplification a lot due to the introduction of GST. So what really happened before GST was there was no clarity in terms of the lorry owners and SMEs minds as to how much weight I have to do at every single state border, what is the tax condition, how much over the top money will I have to pay, and what are the actual rules while going from one state to another. And that is where it became very difficult for them. At the same time, there was no proper documentation for every single transaction, and that is where multiple problems like overloading came into the picture. So with the advent of GST, the whole tax structure became uniform. The tax borders and nakas are no more there. You just have to create an e-waybill document for every single transaction that you're doing, which is transporting material for more than 20 kilometers, and then you're good to go throughout the whole journey. So I would say that GST has basically improved the entire thing. It has basically pushed the entire industry towards organization. Before GST, not many transport SMEs had companies. Now with the advent of GST, it's compulsory for them to do so. With the advent of GST, there is a bit more visibility from the government's end towards the whole cash flow as well, and that is why the business of black has also reduced a lot. So I would say that we are going towards the right direction. GST was a great move, and now with the whole digitization push, I think sky is the limit, and we are moving towards rapid efficiency in terms of the entire execution of the transaction.
How have these initiatives helped VAHAK?
And this helps VAHAK grow a lot because ultimately this is the same mission that we are looking to be a part of. As I said, we are empowering the SMEs and the lorry owners with the power of technology and network. So I would say that this has immensely helped VAHAK. When we went to these transport SMEs and lorry owners in 2015, 2016, the mindset used to be totally different. These SMEs and owners do not want to be online. They never trusted these kinds of online application. Now with GST demonetization, obviously they know that organization is something that they have to do, but at the same time they are doing a lot of UPI payments. They are trusting online payments. They have smartphones. They are paying a very low cost for the data that they're using. So I would say that all of these factors have immensely helped us, and it has created such market conditions because there is a huge pressure on this industry. There is a pressure from the e-commerce sector, from the manufacturing sector, and unless and until these SMEs use technology in their daily business, it's impossible for them to grow. So yeah, I would say that it has helped VAHAK.
Karan, what are your current numbers in terms of number of SMEs and truckers on your platform and the number of transactions that take place?
Right. So we have at this point of time around 10 lakh SMEs and owners on the platform. For the number of trucks, we have around 7 lakh registered trucks on the platform. As I said, on a daily basis, we see around 10,000 active loads in lorries. The number of transactions that we are doing is that we are actually facilitating about $22-23 million of transactions on a monthly basis. This translates to around 50,000 transactions which are happening on the platform on a monthly basis.
What are your future plans as well as targets from here on?
Right. So as I said, we are actually at around 240 million annualized GMV at this point of time. We are looking to grow this 5x, and we are looking to grow up to $1 billion in GMV in the next 6 to 7 months. We have already captured about 1% of the market in terms of the number of supply that we have on the platform. Going forward, we are looking to capture at least 10 to 15% of it in the next 1 year. This will be a phase of rapid acceleration for us. And at the same time, what we are really focusing on is to build a very robust technology. So being a pure tech company, having a robust technology is really important for us because that is the user experience for our users. So the focus will be to basically build a very robust technology and on top of that build features like payments, escrows, and ultimately financial services. But then we have good targets in terms of the scale that we want to achieve as well. So as I said, we are looking to capture 10% of the market and reach $1 billion in annualized GTV in the next 6 to 7 months.
Well, current truckers have always been under pressure, and the fact that they do not have exposure to technology or information puts them in the backseat. Any message for them that would enable them to do better?
Right. So one message that I can say here is that typically transportation and truck owners have a very different image in the market as to what they really are. What I truly believe is that these SMEs and owners are really great businessmen. Since this is a sector which has been running in a certain way for the last 60-70 years, it's difficult for the entire industry to adopt technology and to basically adopt new methods. But to these truck owners and owners, I would say that the time is right. It's a great time to trust new things, and I would say that there is a great opportunity that lies in front of you because the market itself is growing. So every single SME and owners which leverages technology going forward will grow, and I think India is on a right track towards massive digitization and massive growth. So massive opportunity for the transport industry, obviously.
Well friends, that's it from our interaction segment this week. We were talking to Karan Shaha, one of the founders of VAHAK, and one thing that he very clearly spells out is that this industry needs communication and trust, and we have been saying this for a long time. Transporters need to communicate and trust each other, and associations have to be the medium that allow this communication and trust to flow freely. We once again urge transport associations to start talking to each other and come up with a common policy that governs the road transport industry. We'll see you once again next week, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next week, stay safe. Jai Hind.